Good morning, good morning. Welcome to Mornings with Marvel, where authenticity lives and thrives to create a space of growth, healing, and joy. I am your host, Andrea Lawful Sanders, and each day we will cover the topics that are informative and engaging while learning from each other. Good morning to each and every one of you. Thank you for joining me. Happy Friday. You know what? I'm about to lose my cookies over here with this thing that I'm using. We are now on Instagram at A.LawfulTruth_LLC. Again, that is A.LawfulTruth_LLC. If you'd like to watch me on Instagram, that's where I am now. I am no longer broadcasting from my personal page. Again, if you want to find me on Instagram, I am now on A.LawfulTruth_LLC. Like the page, and you'll be able to see when I go live each morning. It is Friday. We're going to have Councilmember Anthony Phillips on. He's not been on for a couple of weeks. We need to talk about, um, what's going on in the city of Philadelphia from his point of view as a council person, and about his district. He can't always talk about what's happening everywhere, but he can discuss what's going on with his particular district. Let me go over here to the chat. Good morning, Alexandra. Good morning, my darling. Good morning. So, I am going to start the morning by discussing our brand new Pope. Uh, and I found it interesting because if you follow the history of the papal, they don't usually invite anyone from the United States to become. So usually someone who is a Latin, Brazil, Italy, that kind of stuff. And we're trying to figure out what is happening in these, we're calling it the streets, right? So this was written by CNN by Lauren Kent. Cardinal Robert Francis Prevost, now known as Pope Leo, is the first pope from the United States in the history of having popes. The 69-year-old from Chicago is known as a leader with global experience. He spent much of his career as a missionary in South America and most recently led a powerful Vatican office for bishop appointments. His election represents continually with the papacy of the late Pope Francis, and he is expected to continue Francis's reforms of the church as well as his focus on poverty and marginalized people. Here's what else you should know about the new American pontiff. Number one, he was the least American of the American cardinals. Prevost was born in Chicago, but inside the Vatican, where he eventually lived and worked, he was considered the least American of the United States cardinals. He worked for a decade in Trujillo, thank you, Trujillo, that J is silent, Trujillo, Peru, and was later appointed Bishop of Chicaleo, another Peruvian city, where he served from 2014 to 2023. Hi, you find that you found me. He speaks fluent Spanish and Italian, both of which he displayed during his first address to the public in St. Peter's Square. He was well regarded by Pope Francis. Good morning, Monica. Good morning, all of you. I see you. He was well regarded by Pope Francis. The late Pope Francis respected him and thought of him very highly, according to CNN's Vatican correspondent, Christopher Lamb. Clearly, Pope Francis saw in him something. He saw him as a capable leader. Lamb met the new Pope Leo when he was a cardinal and said he came across a very thoughtful person, a very measured person. Overall, he came across understated. Good morning, Tamara. Pope Leo is a member of the Augustinian religious order, which is spread across the world. He led the order for more than a decade as its prior general. The new pontiff used his first remarks to say he is a son of St. Augustine, and he quoted the saint's famous phrase, "For you, I am a bishop. With you, after all, I am a Christian." That reflects the idea that all the people in the church hierarchy, from leaders to everyday members, walk together. I knew Alexandra was going to say this. He's also Creole Haitian. His maternal grandparents, both of them were in the Seventh Ward in New Orleans residence, and they are listed on the census as Black Haitian. Because remember when Pope Francis was dying, there was this thing pushed out that the next pope is going to be black. Well, because he can pass, he can pass. you could you could if you look at him hard enough, you're like, hey, he's mixed with something. But we have our first black pope um, right now. Let me. He has strong leadership experience. Pope Francis appointed Prevost to be the prefect uh, of the dicastery for bishops, which is in charge of assessing bishop candidates, and making recommendations for new appointments. Whoo, child. He also served as president of the Pontifical Commission for Latin America. From very young, he was appointed to leadership roles, said Elise Allen, CNN's Vatican analyst. He's seen as somebody who is calm and balanced, who is even handed, and who is very clear on what he thinks needs to be done, but he's not overly forceful in trying to make that happen. He's also a Peruvian citizen. His papal name reflects commitment to the poor. He's seen as a centrist unifier. He studied math at Villanova, so of course Philadelphia claims him. He's a fan of tennis, and that's it. Now that was CNN. No one's talked about his ancestral realm because you know how people are. The thing that struck me about him, the New York Times wrote an article. I was sitting in a graduation waiting for it to start and read this article that the New York Times wrote that said he is like Pope Francis, but he's not. Pope Francis is more welcoming to people. Pope Francis will pray and hug the babies. He will only touch the babies and pray. He won't hug. He's not warm like that. And he also is, they say he's, he doesn't believe in LGBTQ the way Pope Francis did. Like, Pope Francis was trying to shift things around in the Catholic Church. He also believes that women should not be in the pulpit. So there are folks who believes that he's a good Pope because he fought with J.D. Vance and with our current president. I'm not sure if that's enough. I'm just not sure if that's enough. And then there are others that said that when the fracas was happening in the Catholic Church, where so many young boys were raped by priests, he was one of the people they said. And again, I'm just following what folks have said. Oh, come on, Andrea. He was one of the people they said that tried to cover it up. So it'll be interesting to see how he shakes out as the first United States citizen that became Pope in the history of the papacy. I don't know what your thoughts are. Alexandra is happy. Uh, so Roland Martin unveiled it. She said, when it was mentioned on Roland Martin Unfiltered last night, I choked on my water. Well, here we go. Well, here we go. He does look like he has a little bit of, a tan. They will say, oh, he has a tan. He's going to be all right. He has a tan. So we'll see. We'll absolutely see. Um, I don't know. Y'all, what are your thoughts? What are your thoughts? While I wait for Councilmember Anthony Phillips to join me, I'm going to go over here and take a look at the news, which I'm sure they'll talk about the Pope. Uh, all right, there we go. On May 13th, 2025 will mark 40 years to the day after the move bombing when the Philadelphia Police Department dropped a bomb on the headquarters of the Black Liberation Back to Nature's group Osage Avenue headquarters. The bomb started a fire that ended up destroying more than 60 row houses in the West Philadelphia neighborhood. 5 children and 6 adults in the move house were killed. All shared the adopted surname Africa. On Thursday, Philadelphia City Council will hold a hearing addressing the decades since the bombing and vote on a resolution that would establish May 13th as a day of remembrance and reflection. The city is still dealing with the aftermath of the incident decades later. In 2021, remains of some of the victims were discovered to be in the custody of the Penn Museum, and more remains, believed to be those of 12-year-old Delisha Africa, were discovered in 2024. So there's that. That's happening. Um, a Philadelphia police officer is on the road to recovery after being shot while fights were breaking out near Overbrook High School. The suspect, 30-year-old Dakan Say, is facing multiple counts. What is a 30-year-old doing in a school fight? is facing multiple counts of aggravated assault of a law enforcement officer, reckless endangerment, and other related offenses, Police Commissioner Kevin Bethel announced on Thursday. The shots rang out around 2:40 p.m. Wednesday in the area of North 59th Street and Columbia Avenue. According to Bethel, there were several fights outside the school when additional officers were called in. At some point, Bethel says, an adult armed with a weapon got involved, and that's when one shot was fired. That officer is on the mend. The Department of Transportation will build a brand new air traffic control system by 2028, Secretary Sean Duffy announced Thursday. The FAA is going to undertake an initiative that has never been done before, he said. All new hardware, all new software is going to be built into this brand new air traffic control system. The unveiling of the 3 year plan follows more than a week of meltdowns at Newark Liberty International Airport, prompted by what Duffy called frightening 30 to 90-second blackout, woo, of air traffic controller screens and radios on April 28th. At least 5 controllers took trauma leave as a result. Jesus, do you know how many planes could have crashed in that 90 seconds? A minute and a half is a long time to have planes flying and your screens are dark. Mm-mm-mm. 3 former Memphis police officers were acquitted Wednesday of all state charges, including second-degree murder, in the fatal beating of Tyree Nichols after he ran away from a traffic stop, a death that sparked nationwide protests and prompted renewed calls for police reform in the U.S. An out-of-town jury from a majority-white county took about 8.5 hours over 2 days to find Tadarius Bean, Demetrius Haley, and Justin Smith not guilty on all charges after a 9-day trial in state court in Memphis, which is majority black. After the jury's verdict was read, the defendants hugged their lawyers and as relatives of the former officers cried. Outside the courtroom, one relative yelled, "Thank you, Jesus." Philadelphia City Council passes a bill to protect workers who speak up for rights. The legislation is co-sponsored by council members Jim Harity, Mark Square, Nicholas O'Rourke, Jamie Gaudier, Rue Landau, Curtis Jones Jr., Isaiah Thomas, Jeffrey Young, Anthony Phillips, Ketsi Lazada, and Cindy Bass, which is a veto-proof majority of City Council. The bill passed 16-0 with Councilmember Brian O'Neill absent. The Power Act would enable the Philadelphia Department of Labor to investigate and penalize employers accused of abuse, suspend licenses and procurement contracts for violators, and subpoena records in workers' rights court cases. Third party attorneys can also file civil cases against employers as class action lawsuits. That's pretty big. The Trump administration announced a trade deal with the United Kingdom today, but with only limited details about what it will achieve. The House voted to codify Trump's order that the Gulf of Mexico be renamed the Gulf of America. Trump this afternoon congratulated Cardinal Robert Francis Prevost on being elected Pope. The president is strongly considering naming Fox News host Janine Pirro as interim U.S. Attorney for the District of Columbia. And he did. He did. He renamed her. Oh, dear God. Japanese automaker Toyota says President Trump's tariffs would cost the company 1.3 billion in just 2 months. Toyota highlighted that the levies hit to profits as a press briefing on Thursday on its fiscal year, which ended on March 31st, 2025. The company said during the briefing that it expects the tariffs to cost 1.3 billion in April and May alone. The Trump administration in March imposed a 25% tariff on the roughly 8 million vehicles assembled abroad that the U.S. imports annually. The car makers stopped short of making predictions on future tariffs hits on business, with Toyota CEO Koji Sato saying that any future impact would be very difficult to forecast. Other industry players have also spelled out the tariffs effects on business and consumers. The Pennsylvania House is making history with the passing of a landmark bill that could legalize recreational marijuana, but this move is unlike other efforts to allow cannabis use. It would be sold under a state-owned store model, similar to how Pennsylvania sells liquor. It was a very close call on this push to legalize, tax, and regulate recreational marijuana for adults 21 and over. The Democratic controlled House narrowly approved the bill in a 102 to 101 vote. The bill, introduced by Representative Rick Krajewski of Philadelphia and Dan Frankel of Pittsburgh, would also expunge and vacate certain marijuana related convictions, but the bill is finding little support in the Republican controlled Senate. So, well, there you go. A new study looks at cancer increasing before the age of 50 is rare, but increasing in the United States, and researchers want to know why. A new government study provides the most complete picture yet of early onset cancers, finding the largest increases are in breast, colorectal, kidney, and uterine cancers. Scientists from the National Cancer Institute looked at data that included more than 2 million cancers diagnosed in people 15 to 49 years of age between 2010 and 2019. Of 33 cancer types, 14 cancers had increasing rates in at least one younger age group. About 63% of the early onset cancers were among women. Stress and the food we eat. I keep telling you all, I have said it over and over again. What we eat is killing us, literally. And so when I talk to folks about, what you put in your stomachs, and it's easy. I know it's easy to just go to the local fast foods folks, but they're putting chemicals in your food to preserve them and allow them to last longer. And it's just a lot. Someone took a McDonald's hamburger some years ago and sat it aside. And years later, the hamburger was still intact. It didn't rot. It didn't do all the stuff. So because there's such large franchises of large food chain, they use certain preservatives to keep the food. And I'm like, look, I don't have a dog or a bone in this fight in terms of what we put in our belly. Yes, we do. Yes, we do. Because Dr. Oz said, let me tell you what Dr. Oz said. Hold on one sec. Hold on there. Let me just go back and let you hear what he said just yesterday. Uh, Dr. Oz said 70% of the money we spend is on chronic illnesses, and we are not getting our money's worth. For folks listening right now, it is your patriotic duty to be as healthy as you can. He was talking about Medicare and Medicaid and how they're losing money from it. And yeah, so you're going to be considered expendable if you're chronically ill all the time. All the time. There are folks who are ill, um, because of, autoimmune diseases, things that they can't, control. But the things that they believe, he said 70% of all the chronic illnesses they're losing money in Medicare and Medicaid. So yeah, he's advising people to get as healthy as they possibly can because there's been discussion about cutting Medicare and Medicaid. I keep telling y'all, I don't know how else to have the conversation with all of you about this, about staying as healthy as you can. What is his name? What is his name? And so, look, and I've been having conversations with doctors about, what we can do to take better care of ourselves. Hold on, I'm sending a message. Oh, Lord, help me. And wait. Here we go. Here we go. Oh, no worries. Just come on. All right. Um, so let me read some of the comments that we have here. Good morning, Bobby Womack, and I'm sorry, Debbie Womack and Bobby Carr. Good morning, Sharon. Good morning, Teresa. I see all of you, my darlings. And so let me see what's happening over here. Good morning, Marguerite. All right, so Alexandra says Augustinian orders serve the poor. Charlie Kirk and MAGA are already calling him woke and like Pope Francis taking the name of Pope Leah. I can't, I don't even, look. Tamara says, I heard taught that not only was it a kids fight, it was a girls fight. Girls fighting like that? Hmm. Pope Leo was a sign of where this Pope stands. That was Alexandra. Jania said the officer shot was one of my scholar's relative. It's just nuts. Um, Alexandra says at Tamara Books, really, I saw the video and couldn't believe it. In the foods, leave the Goya seasoning alone, Alexandra says. MSG, dyes, etc. If you're getting the seasoning in there and it's supposed to be garlic, let's just say garlic powder. If it says garlic powder and then a bunch of other things you cannot pronounce, leave it on the shelf. Just get some fresh garlic, pummel it out, and use it in your food. The fresh seasonings are much better for you anyway. The reason why the Jamaican food tastes so good is because we use fresh thyme, fresh onions, fresh all the things, all the fresh things. And if we're going to use garlic powder or onion powder, we make sure it says onion powder, garlic powder. We're very careful not to have even our ketchup if we use that kind of stuff. Good morning, Tria Jones. We just have to be very careful. And I know it's difficult, but again, I've said this over and again. If you buy something and it has more than four ingredients and you cannot pronounce half of them, don't buy it. It's literally, it might taste good to you, but it's damaging your body. And to quote Dr. Oz, yeah, you're becoming a liability in this country. We're going to let you die. All right? So just be careful. Renee, good morning, my darling. How are you? Let's see. Roslyn, good morning, Roslyn. Good morning, everyone. So just be thoughtful. I think Councilmember Phillips will be on shortly to get here. It's Friday. Mother's Day is on Sunday. Sent a text to my son and I said, I know you're going to do. I said, what are you doing for your wife? And he tells me all these wonderful things he's doing for her, which just makes me so happy. When I look at her running behind three small babies, I marvel. I absolutely marvel. And there are days when I just randomly send her a Starbucks gift card or something where she loves coffee, right? And sometimes she makes her coffee in the morning, puts it on the counter, and then she looks up and it's like 6 o'clock in the evening and the coffee is still sitting there because she's running behind babies. And when they're sleeping, she's cleaning or doing whatever needs to be done. Because my son is working and he helps her too, which is what I love. When he gets a break from work, he comes in and he checks with them, plays with the baby so she can sit down for 4 or 5 minutes, whatever time it takes. So they really work as a team. And so this year I said to him, I know you're doing great things for her, but I want to do something nice for her. Because I just think she has been incredible in all of this. I have two children of my own, but I had a 4 year break in between. And when the second son was born, the older one became more like his little, made sure he was okay. And when he was 6, the other one was 2, kind of thing. Yeah, kind of thing. So my oldest son was able to take care of his younger brother and work with me. They really don't have any help, which is why I go and I spend as much time as I can. So tomorrow, I am going to spend time with them. And then my youngest son is coming in. So I get to see both of my children for Mother's Day. Um, and so I'm excited about that. I don't know what you all are doing for Mother's Day, but let me know. All I want to do is see my children. Let's see. Good morning, sir. I don't see
Good
you.
morning. Good
I
morning.
don't
Good
see your
morning. Good
camera.
morning.
Where's your
Let me see.
camera?
Oh, yes, 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 yes. Hold on. Oh, there we go.
There you
All
go.
right. I'm here.
Good morning.
Good
This is
morning.
Council
Good
Member
morning to
Anthony
you.
Phillips, who is the councilman for the ninth councilmatic district, more like in the northwest, Olney, Burholm, that kind of spot. And so, good morning, sir. We haven't seen you for a couple of weeks,
I know.
and you just steady getting thinner.
We miss we miss each other.
Yeah,
I'm on, you're on, so it's just like yeah. So I'm just excited for us to be
yeah.
back, and
What's
lots
happening
been
in
going on.
Yeah, I know. So what's happening in city council? I read
So
some of the things that took place yesterday
yeah,
for
yeah,
workers'
yeah.
rights. That was really good. What else is happening?
So I'll just start. I'll start here. Yesterday was it a Philadelphia City Council made a decision on whether or not vehicle mobile services can be can literally be everywhere, Kensington. So ultimately, what the bill does is that, and I'll just give you a fact sheet, for the bill in itself. But it was bill number 240665,
Hmm.
and ultimately, what was proposed, the bill defines different types of mobile services, areas where mobile service providers can operate in Kingston, and call for a permit system for those who are providing medical services. So in Kingston, there are people who do wound care, they provide food,
Yes.
they do all types of things through like these trucks and cars and all types of stuff. And but they when they do it, they're in residential areas. That sometimes by being in residential areas, the people that they're treating, they're sitting on their porch. Their kids are watching the wound care take place in front of their front step. So what the problem is, it was introduced is that why this bill was introduced is because residents of Kingston and the surrounding area, they voiced concern over the presence of mobile service providers, contributing to litter, nuisance behavior, and safety concerns. So ultimately, what the bill did is that it said that if you are a mobile service provider, you can basically do your services, but you have to do it at a certain location. And it's going to be at 265 East Lehigh Avenue. And additional locations may be established by the administration later on, but currently it is going to be at 265 East Lehigh Avenue. And the bill permits the services to be conducted between 11 p.m. and 6 a.m. Between East Allegheny Avenue and Kingston Avenue, which is right there near
So it's 265 East Lehigh, right?
East Lehigh. Yep.
Lehigh Avenue. So
And then
wound
if
care
you're a
will happen there.
non-medical mobile service, you can be at a single location for no longer than 45 minutes. And if you're found in violation,
Wait.
yeah,
So if you are doing wound care, so are you saying that if they're doing wound care anywhere other than 265 East Lehigh, they can only be there for 45 minutes? Is that what you're saying?
yep, yep, exactly.
But
Um,
according to what I have learned over the last couple of years, that the wound care is, when we first learned about it, hospitals didn't even want to take it on because the wound care is deep, it's to the bone in many cases. People are now becoming amputees because of the horse tranquilizer that they're using in place of what they would normally get on the street. Correct me when I'm wrong, right?
mhm.
And so to do wound care, and who are these people that are doing wound care? Are they nurses and doctors, or are they just regular folks who decided to open up a mobile space to do wound care? That's the other question that I have to ask.
And that was part of the regulations. That some of these people weren't nurses and doctors.
Stop for a
They
second. Tria Jones says wound care clients are often not able to be mobile. That's why they're going places to do what they need to do. How are they going to get to 265 East Lehigh Avenue
right,
if,
right,
right?
right. And so that that became the argument, right? They're like, well, we understand, the mobile service providers. They're like, oh yeah, we understand, but we're actually helping Kensington's quality of life by getting these wound care served. However, that's not the way this. There were people. There were people that were principals in the schools and residents. They were like, "No, you're not helping because you're doing the wound care in front of us, which
So,
attracts more people." But I think
ah,
that
okay, I'm
so
trying
yeah,
to follow. I'm trying to follow you, Councilmember Phillips. What you're
yeah,
saying is, instead of doing the wound care in the vehicles that they're using, that they're transporting, that they're doing it
yes,
out on the street in front of children and adults, etc.
yep, near schools and and porches. And that's what the argument was. It's like you could do it, but let's not do it in front of the citizens of Kingston.
Right. So Marguerite says, wow, wound care takes time. I did it for my husband during COVID because they only allowed him a nurse 2 days a week. So 45 minutes, which is why I'm asking, 45 minutes at a time is not, it's
Yeah,
counterproductive,
and
right?
that was for the non-medical part, right? So they could
Yeah.
stay, and that was the other thing. She only limited, like the bill limits basically from 11 p.m. to six a.m. for
And that's
you.
the other thing. So in the middle of the night, we're doing wound care. Council member, can you stop
I
playing with me on
hey,
today?
you
So
know
wound care is
this
11
is
p.m. to
really
6 a.m. So overnight when people are not under, who came up with this bill?
now, no. So Lazada said, she did research and had conversations with some of these medical service providers, and then also through observations, they said most of the treatment took place in the evening. Some of these services, people wanted them in the evening. Now, I'm like, yeah, I understand that some people are going to want them during the day, but I'm also sitting here saying, like, well, how long is this going to, you know, carry on? I think the ultimate goal, honestly, is to get is the for me, and I think about the district that I represent, on city council that I had the privilege to represent. I don't think a lot of residents would want to see the mobile services at all.
In the
Um,
district that you represent, they would string you up.
there you go. There you go. And so I thought she was being generous by saying 11 p.m. to 6 a.m. Because if it was in the ninth district and maybe some other districts, people would literally say, get rid of them altogether.
Yeah.
And
Mm-hmm.
so I think that the goal, honestly, from talking to the author of the bill, the
Mm-hmm.
goal is to get the people into how like formal house treatment or build or treatment in some sort of building, as opposed to on a street. So we're not, in their words, enabling them to know that their
What?
services are going to be back with them on the street. So
I,
I know. So the whole
I
goal
know.
is
I
to
know you're a member of.
pick them up, and get them out of there. And that's
That's
it.
exactly what it is. Pick them
That's
up and
the
get them
whole.
out of
That's
here.
the real goal. To pick them up and get them out of there. So when someone says, "Oh yeah, the lifesaver treatment," like that's it's not going to happen during the day, as well as like they're not going to come to they're not it's going to be hard for them to get to a place. It's like, yeah, that's it's kind of the goal. The goal is to kind of get them off the street and desiring this.
So
Yeah.
Alexandra says in most cases the staffing during the day is limited, so that might be why they're doing it at night. Lena says that so if they're providing medical services, are they certified to provide the care? If not, who is responsible if something goes wrong?
What if there's a person that is non-medical?
Yes.
Oh yeah.
Who's responsible if something goes
Yeah,
wrong?
that was
Because you
part
need
of the
to make the
problem.
the space
and
sterile.
and that's why they have to get. That's why there's a permit process now, because there was too many people that were doing this care that did not have that weren't doctors and nurses. Why? Because doctors and nurses are not spending all their time in Kingston. What they want, what the real money is in the hospitals and in other medical facilities. So
Ah,
yeah, you
David Dedman
basically had
says
people
this
who were
is
just like, I forget what the training might train is, some
right.
certification.
Why aren't we dealing? Because here, David Dedman said this: short-sighted and non-clinical thought. It's horrible. These people are community members who are high. How is it that we have a crisis in this country that
Hmm.
everybody tried to ignore? I started talking about it in 2010, 2011 when I started seeing things in Abington. And all I kept hearing was, this is coming from the city. This is coming from the city. And I kept saying, but these are our children, right?
Mm,
These are our children. Folks are coming from around the country. Now, yes, we have a lot more brown and black people who are
right.
becoming addicted to these things, these drugs. But this was an issue in our communities of suburbs, in the suburbs, right? I was
Yep.
having the conversations with the families who were like, we had to lock our doors. They were stealing things. They were running down to the city to get their drugs. We couldn't find them for that. And it took them so long to address it that it feels like the horse and the cart are far away from the barn, and everybody is now pointing fingers in Kensington. But had each community done what it needed to do in that moment, all those years ago, we would not be here. So now it's not getting any better, Councilman Phillips, right?
No, it's not
And
getting any
now
better. It's getting
they're
worse.
yes.
It's getting absolutely worse, and that's the concern. Um, on both sides of the fence. Here's what I understood from both sides of the fence and listening to the public testimony, that people are concerned about these individuals dying. However, the residents of Kensington are concerned about, yeah, these individuals dying, but they're more concerned about this being an ongoing situation that never ends, that they have to endure and watch because people are getting this treatment all the time, and people make money off of these mobile services. Okay, this is a people
Who
get
gives them the
paid.
money to do this?
They get grants. They get, there's organized, from national grants that do it. They were at one point getting money from the city of Philadelphia, but Cheryl Parker cut that off. And then at one point they were getting federal support, right? But I don't know if they're going to get that anymore. So this is in a situation. So in some ways, this is also a money grab for a lot of folks. Um, and I don't know how.
As my friend George would say, they're poverty pimps.
Yeah, there you
Just
go.
trying to.
There
There you
you
go.
go.
So there's
That's
always
it.
going to be a small group that are looking to make money from this.
Yes,
But Lena
indeed.
says so. Oh, Ash says there can be deep wounds which should be treated privately. Tria says life-saving treatment limited to hours of sleep only. Training needs to be done for people willing to help. And David says, why don't we address where the drugs come from? We've been trying to kill off those people and take their houses forever. What are you talking about, David? Let's go. Let's talk about this. The ass says wound care is often neglected, even in skilled nurse, and that's true. Even in skilled nursing care facilities, wound care is neglected. And I also noticed that if you're a senior, as you get older and you go into these nursing facilities, you have to fight tooth and nail to get wound
Yes, you
care
do.
taken care of. So, what is going on in this country?
A
It's
lot.
like the poor is expendable, the sick are expendable, the aged, the people who are older are expendable. What, we only want young people? What is happening here?
You know what? The, it's becoming. Um, I think that there, for our city, I don't think the idea is that folks are expendable. I think the idea is that we're not going to stabilize the Kensington community, and tough decisions are going to have to be made if we don't want this to continue. Because the reality is that unfortunately these individuals, I don't know how, found themselves on these drugs, and now as a result they it's we're trying to get them to take full treatment in one of these centers that we have, which the wellness center that we have in
Dr.
Northeast.
Ayla is
Yep,
heading,
and
yes.
Dr. Ayla, we want them to go through the full treatment process, which they have wound care there, amongst some other medical services, and there's also counseling for addiction and some other things, right? That's what they want them to do and stay there, right? As opposed to getting the wound services as well as food and other medical treatment that's available on the street so that they can go back out and do the same thing. And so
Okay.
unfortunately what's going to happen is that people will pass away, right? Unfortunately, because the decision would be, not if they're not making a decision, which the city is actually trying to find a way to push people, but basically having wellness court force them off the street into these wellness facilities. And if they don't do it, eventually they will be in a situation where death will be may arise. And I
Oh, but they've
think
been
that
dying for years. They've been
they're gonna be
dying in
dying
the
for years.
streets.
But then if
The
that
cops have
happens,
said the cops have said they have found up to 10 bodies, a week, in the Kensington area. People have been dying in corners. So
yep.
David says, why don't we address where the drugs came from? We've been trying to kill off those people and take their houses forever. Oh, he said, oh, ask the developers what they lobby for in that neighborhood. He said, how
Yeah.
many houses are fee simple put into the land bank every council session? Ask why the developers get to bid on those land bank properties to building luxury and gentrify the neighborhood. Here's the issue, though. We're seeing them coming up in all across the city. The folks, they're pushing them out of Kensington,
Hmm.
but those same folks are in, I've seen them everywhere, you know,
Wow.
bent over, looking for money, trying. So, what are we going to put wellness centers in every community?
So right now we have two large ones, right? We have Philly at Girard, that's in North Philadelphia, and then we have one. What's the other one? Sorry, Philly at the Girard, and then a wellness center in Northeast. It doesn't
Right.
necessarily have a name to it. Uh,
Uh,
but so the goal is to get, yeah, a couple more, and so to to really address this issue. Um, and right now we're they're seeking more funding in the budget this year to do that. And then also they need land because they believe that the wellness centers are working right now.
okay.
And I mean, to me, I'll be honest with you, I also believe that we do need these wellness centers to fully solve the problem. And I would like for these individuals to get into the wellness centers because I feel like if they stay on the street of Kensington, then what's going to end up happening is they're going to continue to get these
Hmm.
services, but they're going to just stay there and
What
not
does
be.
the data say about how hard it is to kick these drugs that these folks are on? Because I think if it was simple,
Yep.
it wouldn't be an existential crisis around the country right now. That's
Yeah.
the first question. What does the data say about that? And then the second question is, many of these folks don't come from Philadelphia.
Mm.
So do we have addresses where the counties where they're coming from, asking the counties to pay for some of the cost of what you have to do to make sure that these wellness centers exist?
Yeah, that's a really good question, and I think that there is data available on that. Let me see here. Um, I have to come back to you on the data around how
Okay.
difficult it is to get individuals off of the street.
It is, it is,
But
it
I can only
actually,
imagine it's like
yeah.
the percentage is high in terms of how the
Yeah, it's
difficulty.
high. It's very high. It's very difficult for them to kick this. There are people who have tried over and over and over again for years. So if it was that simple to kick it, then many more would be, they said like something like 5% of the people actually kick this thing.
Yep, that's
It is
about right.
the recidivism rate is ridiculous. And
Hmm.
and then David keeps saying that the drugs are coming in from Lancaster County.
Yeah.
How do
Oh yeah.
we
Yeah. Absolutely. And the people are coming from and the people actually don't live in Philadelphia. A good percentage of them. I don't have that percentage, but I do know that a lot of folks are not. They're transients into
Yeah, and you're
Philadelphia.
right. And so now Marguerite says I see a lot of them on 63rd and Callowhill next to Boys Latin Middle School. I see them all up in Germantown around Uncle Bobby's. They come to use the bathroom. They come to ask for money. God bless Mark Lamont Hill, Hart and his staff. They really, they don't push them out and say you can't be in here, whatever. But the Germantown is rife with them, so they're moving.
They're migrating. Wow, into Germantown near Uncle Bobby's.
Yes,
That's
yes.
unbelievable. That's unbelievable. Unbelievable.
But
That's
but let
terrible.
me be but let me be clear with you. They're in the ninth ward too.
Oh yeah, I've heard. There was people saying I see them in, in our district around the Northeast, like trickling
Hmm.
up there.
Hmm.
Um, I was driving somewhere the other day, and I saw this lady in West Oak Lane that was just like, I'm like, wait a minute, like, I hope she's not what I think, so this is a citywide crisis, which is why
Yeah.
we're concerned. It's like we got to get these people off the streets in Kensington into treatment because we don't want it to become they just move to somewhere else.
Are you
And so,
having
yeah.
are you having conversations with the folks who have been out there working with them? I saw that Ketsilazada had a moment in city council last
Hmm.
week. What was she talking about?
Yeah, so the moment she had in city council was she was explaining to all of us that she was frustrated that she was being called, you know, a person who didn't care, a person who was a killer of individuals who are on drugs. Um, and so she said no. She has spent time meeting with every mobile service provider. She said that she had spent time meeting with residents, and she offered, um, the mobile service providers an opportunity to share their plan on how they can make sure that this is not being seen by the residents of Kingston. And they did not come up with a really decent plan on how to make sure that litter and they're not is around the area. Nuisance businesses aren't being disrupted as a result. Kids are watching it and so forth. And so their stance was that they just want to be able to do it throughout Kingston. And Ketsey's like, no, that's not solving my problem, which is that
Right.
residents are talking about that they have to watch this every day because you're luring them to these mobile services.
Mm-hmm.
And so they never really came to an agreement. And so she was kind of
Yeah.
frustrated,
Okay, so
and that's what she
David
talked
says
about.
the mobile service provider said she did not in testimony.
I don't I don't know why I don't believe that because I remember her being called to meetings
Mm-hmm.
about this, and I kind of recall formal meetings that I heard about that she
Mm-hmm.
went to with the mobile service providers. So I don't know if I
Mm-hmm.
believe that, but if that's the case, I wouldn't know. Let's just say that.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So what? So with that being said, I also want to share with you that yesterday, the Power Act was passed.
Yes. Describe
Um,
what that is, please. I read a little bit about it
yeah,
in the
yeah,
news this
yeah.
morning.
So in summary, the Power Act does the following: it strengthens enforcement of labor laws already on the books, but here are the labor laws. Um, Ultimately, it protects workers from retaliation when they speak up against not getting paid,
Mm-hmm.
not getting any particular a service that they were supposed to give, like if the employee was supposed to give them equipment, or to help them with their cleaning and stuff like that. Like it basically, if they want to speak up to the Office of Labor Protections or a lawyer, whatever it might be, um, they can't be automatically fired. There would be
Mm-hmm.
a
Mm-hmm.
process where there would be a hearing, and there would have to be some sort of like mediation that would take place.
Mm-hmm.
So ultimately, because I think what was happening, not that I think, some employees weren't paying their employers, and so now under the
That happens a lot.
yeah, these were domestic workers too. So some domestic workers would be promised to get paid this, and that because you're a domestic worker, you look up instead of giving you $100, they're giving you $50.
Mm.
And you're
Mm-mm.
sitting here like what? But they didn't feel they didn't like they didn't feel empowered to do anything about it.
Mm-hmm.
And what I didn't realize is that essentially we're like serious employees. If you have a person that comes into your house, like you don't make a lot of money, but you
Right.
have a person that comes out, you basically should have an employee contract with a cleaner,
Mm-hmm.
that's a domestic worker. So that's basically the sense of the bill. Basically, the gist of the bill. It basically,
Mm-hmm.
and then also it makes some of the employers that make multiple offenses,
Mm-hmm.
they get on the bad actor database. After about three offenses,
But
they're
how are the domestic workers going to know they're on a database? If you're a
yeah.
domestic worker, chances are you don't have that kind of access. You don't have the time, the energy, or the access to get on a bad actors database. How do you let the the domestic workers know there's a space where they can look before they go to an employer?
So you're absolutely, and that is the job of the National Domestic Workers Alliance,
Okay.
that they are supposed to be working with all of the domestic workers to make sure that they understand their rights.
Mm-hmm.
They definitely are not. Most of the domestic workers are definitely not as aware
Mm-hmm.
of their rights,
Okay.
but they definitely have them. And I think the city of Philadelphia Labor Department has made a commitment to try to spread the word as well. But you're
Mm-hmm.
right, a lot of them do not know that they do have these databases that they can check, and so forth. So yeah,
I have a
um,
question for you. You
yeah,
you work in city government, and you're a city council member. I mean, you don't have to answer this if you don't want to, but
yeah.
are there days where you feel like you're just slapping your head up against the window pane and nothing's changing?
You know what? The reality is that for me, I get frustrated because I feel like it doesn't change quick enough. I feel like we create, like, for example, this week on council, there was a hearing with the law department, and I was, you know, greatly concerned about the fact that the law department is responsible for supporting license and inspections, the public health department with issues around businesses that are nuisances in the community.
Mm-hmm.
So ultimately, the city council, a couple of us on city council were concerned about the fact that the process, what is not expedited, right? Per se, for hey, hey. All right, be right
Oh, that
back.
cutie
My
pie.
godson. All right. Good morning. I'll see you back. Okay. All right. So,
Does he
yeah, not
want his
right now.
breakfast?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I'll be back in 5 minutes. All right, yeah.
Tell
So,
him, tell him 7 minutes. You got to give him a time, Anthony. You
I
got to tell
said
him
five.
seven
I
minutes.
said five. Right.
Right.
uh, but here's what the issue is that, so we don't expedite the process when it comes to nuisance businesses.
Mm-hmm.
I'll give you an example. The example is the example yeah, yeah, yeah. The example is this. Um, we have we have the following issue. I'm trying to collect my thoughts because he threw me off a
I
little
know
bit.
it's all right. It's all
Yeah,
right.
yeah, yeah. So upon a nuisance business being like, no, like selling Lucy's, if they're
Mm-hmm.
selling Lucy's, Andrea, the public health department goes out, investigates it.
Mm-hmm.
They'll issue them a violation, which is like a fine, but
Mm-hmm.
they'll give them an opportunity to fix that particular issue, right? And I'm
Okay.
like, okay, cool, due process, right? But the problem is that is hold on one second.
Yeah.
All right,
Okay.
so there is
Is
the
it-
nuisance the nuisance businesses, like,
mhm.
so they'll sell the Lucy's, right? And I was gonna say to you, oh yeah,
You said that they give them a fine,
they get them a fine. So
but then what happens after that?
what happens after this is the following: they'll get they get opportunity to try to fix the problem again.
Right.
So they'll, after maybe like 30 days, they come back out. The inspector sees there's no issues, and then it's like, like, okay, they're back in business, which is fine. What I'm proposing is this: for certain things, they should tell businesses across the city of Philadelphia
Yeah.
that if you're not in compliance, right,
Mm-hmm.
after selling like things that are really deemed hazardous by many communities, such as
Mm-hmm.
alcohol
Mm-hmm.
sales, illegal alcohol sales, illegal
Mm-hmm.
tobacco sales, drug paraphernalia sales, right, Lucy's, whatever, to kids, all that and more. There we have strict policies on that. Yes, you can get your due process, but however, if you're found guilty upon the first investigation by one of our inspectors,
Mm-hmm.
you can make an appeal. After the
Mm-hmm.
appeal, you can, go back. Once you found guilty, you have to cease and desist. Then you
Mm-hmm.
can immediately make an appeal. Then your business will open again, once you make the appeal. Once the hearing takes place, because you want to expedite the hearing,
Mm-hmm.
then you can be able to defend in court whether or not you were in violation of that code.
Mm-hmm.
If they're found in violation of that code, what a lot of folks are saying, and the residents are saying, like, just close them all together, because then the likelihood is that they're going to end up selling Lucy's again
Which is
once
what
they get.
folks have been saying forever and a day. That they get a fine, the people come out, they go back to doing it all over again. Because if
Yes.
you get the fine and you're still allowed to do business, that's really not impacting. But if
Yep.
you get a fine and you're told to shut the hell down for the next God knows how many days until you go to court, that will really tamper a lot of what they're doing. And it's
Yes.
our children that are being impacted by what they do day in and day out. It's our
Yes.
children that are getting these illicit drugs in their systems, and they go out into school and they get brave and they're pulling guns and knives, and it's as if they're trying to annihilate whole communities and doing it on the back of sales. Right, we're making money
Yes.
in your communities, and so after the second attempt of this, and you've been locked down twice, that business should shutter all the way together
That
because
that's
clearly you don't see. I should have
and
become a
this is
lawyer. I
what's
can
going on,
see.
and people were like, but then you wonder why there's certain stores that remain open in our community
Yeah.
because it's not like they L&I doesn't, license inspection doesn't come out,
Mm-hmm.
public health doesn't come out. It's because they're giving multiple chances to correct their problem. And I'm like, why are we doing this?
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Because by keeping these businesses here, right, we're not going to be able to attract the decent businesses because they don't want to be around these individuals.
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah.
destroying our neighborhoods. So yes, Andrea,
Mm-hmm.
I do get frustrated because we offer ideas that come from the neighborhood,
Mm-hmm.
and we offer policy changes, and nothing's changing. And a lot
Yeah.
of times when they don't want to do something, and I think I've said this before, they'll just say, "Oh, we need more money to do it." I'm like, no, you don't really need more money. You need to work on the system the people that you currently have.
Poverty sells.
That's it.
Poverty makes money. There are people who make tons of money off of poverty, and when they're tired of it, they annihilate the people or make their communities terrible that the people don't want to live there and they move out. And the next thing you know, it's the best place on earth to live. Totally
Mm-hmm.
gentrified, brand new buildings. There are houses in Kensington right now that are costing over $500,000. Why I don't?
It's
So you see, as we would say in Jamaica, you see the rake, you see the
yep,
thing coming, right?
yep.
And they keep doing this over and over and over again. I applaud you for sitting there because after sitting through one city council meeting, I was like, no, this is a lot. This is a lot to take in. And if the
It
process
is.
doesn't get better, then what do we do Thursday after Thursday after Thursday?
Absolutely, absolutely. And so that's the part that's frustrating. And honestly, you know, a lot of these departments have to do a better job with
Yeah,
figuring being more innovative. With the
yeah, yeah,
resources that they have.
yeah, yeah.
Even more strategic, just saying, you know
Mm-hmm.
what, we don't have the right staff.
Yes.
However, we're just going to focus on these council districts for this next couple
Mm-hmm.
months, the
Mm-hmm.
next council districts for these months. Like, they
Mm-hmm.
just the beat, and then like maybe have a special task force
Mm-hmm.
that focuses on the rest of the districts, but maybe like just have some sort of system to what
Yes.
you're doing when so it's just everything when you're doing a nuisance investigation. It's just like, I just don't think a lot of times people are innovative without having someone like a council person or the
Mm-hmm.
mayor provide the
Mm-hmm.
innovation for them.
Mm-hmm.
And so,
Mm-hmm.
and I think a lot of people are really comfortable with just getting their checks, which makes
Sure.
this really frustrating because this is not getting a check position in life. This is a
Mm-hmm.
public service thing. You need people like you, Andrea, have your mentality working for these departments as opposed to people are just like, you know, eh, we got to
Yeah.
follow the guidelines. Like
Because
what?
the people the people that are in these communities that they don't care about. I
Yeah,
want to thank you. I know your godson is waiting for you, so I just want to
yeah,
thank
yeah.
you so much for
So thank
joining
you.
me.
I'll be back. I wanted to come back next week, but I'm graduating from University of Massachusetts next week, the PhD.
Congratulations!
So I will be
You
back the
trying to do city
following.
council
We'll
and
find
do
some
this
stuff.
too? God
Yeah,
bless you.
yeah,
God
yeah,
bless you.
yeah. And my
So
apologies for
I'll
being a
see you
little
in a
late this
couple of
morning.
weeks. Okay.
Yes,
All
I'll see
right.
you.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Bye bye,
Bye bye.
my friend. This episode of Mornings with Mother is officially over. I am Andrea Lawful Sanders. I'll see you when I see you. Bye, everybody. Bye bye. Yay! I'm so excited. Bye, darlings. Goodbye.